Hi everybody, have a wonderful day. In this video talk about Garmin Venu 3 review. Subscribe our InfoRx channel for future updates. If you go to a marathon, a running or cycling event, or pretty much any competitive sport, chances are you will see one brand of watches more than others, Garmin. And while previously the Garmin brand was associated with basic watches which used monochrome displays and did not quite have the functionality of a full-on smartwatch, the latest Garmin Venu 3 aims to change that with a lot more functionality while keeping Garmin's big advantage, battery life measured in days rather than hours. More specifically, the Garmin Venu 3 battery lasts for an average of around 5 days with the always-on screen enabled, and even more if you turn that feature off. And it's also got a gorgeous OLED screen, just like the Apple Watch, Galaxy Watch and Pixel Watch. And this being Garmin, you know it has excellent sports tracking and a few cool features like body battery. So is the Garmin Venu 3 finally that ultimate smartwatch with 1 week battery life that you should get? Let's find out in our in-depth review. Garmin Venu 3 Unboxing. The Garmin Venu 3 comes in a very simple box and the unboxing experience is bare bones to say the least. The packaging feels kind of cheap, and inside the box you have the watch with a strap on it, the proprietary Garmin charging cable with USB-C on the other end, as well as a user manual. For simplicity's sake, further on in the review we will always refer to the watch as the Garmin Venu 3, but to be more specific, we actually have the Garmin Venu 3S version in for review. S, in Garmin watches stands for small, and this one has a 41mm size, which is best suited for arms with a circumference of less than 170mm. The Venu 3S has a slightly smaller screen, smaller battery and weighs slightly less than the larger Venu 3, 45mm, but for all else they are practically identical. Garmin Venu 3 design and sizes. We love that the Garmin Venu 3 comes in two sizes, the 45mm larger Venu 3 model and then the 41mm small Venu 3S, the one we have for review. Both watches come with a plastic body and only the bezel around the screen is made of stainless steel. That was surprising considering the high price of the watches and the fact that the previous Venu 2 Plus used aluminum. We guess the reason for that is to reduce the weight, but those who prefer the more premium feel of metal might be disappointed. Overall, the Venu 3 wears very comfortably. It is lightweight, which is hugely important if you plan to wear it to track your sleep, and the band that comes with it allows for easy adjustments. Some reviewers have mentioned mushy buttons, and while that might be the case for some units, the buttons on the watch we have are perfectly good. Garmin Venu 3 bands. There is a slight difference in the band size for the different Venu 3 models. The larger Venu 3 uses 22mm straps, while the Venu 3S we have uses 18mm straps. These are your standard spring bar bands, so there are no fancy new ways to swap bands here, but after a while you do get used to this, so it was no big deal to us. The silicone sport band that comes in the box is also soft and very comfortable, and we have found Garmin bands to be very durable and last for years. Garmin Venu 3 software and features. Garmin was once known for sports watches that are used mostly by athletes, but with the switch to OLED screens and by adding support for calls and a voice assistant via the phone, the Garmin Venu 3 aims to be more than that. It aims to be a smartwatch, playing in the same leagues as Apple Watches and Galaxy Watches, even though it still runs on Garmin's proprietary and much simpler operating system. So how does it do as a smartwatch wannabe? Well, we have some bad news about the interface and UI. After reviewing all of the above smartwatches, using the Venu 3 actually felt like going back in time. The interface lacks essential functionality. For example, all modern smartwatches support watch faces with complications. You can raise your wrist and see a ton of data right away. Very few Garmin watch faces do, at least not nearly in that amount. Worse yet, you cannot tap on a complication to go directly to the corresponding app screen, like you can on all other true smartwatches. The watch faces also look bare bones and don't have nowhere near the information density of a modern smartwatch. Garmin has an app store for watch faces, but after wasting literally a couple of hours looking for a decent watch face that would show me the information I was used to seeing on other smartwatches, I just gave up. Garmin really needs to work on creating at least a few truly good-looking, information-dense watch faces. Navigation also takes a while to get used to and does not always make sense. A swipe right shows you one widget that you can customize, but that's it. Just one. Why can't I swipe further to see even more information? And why does nothing happen when I swipe left? These are weird, nonsensical interface design choices. You access the majority of information by swiping up or down. That works fine, but such an interface would be a perfect fit for a digital crown like you have on Apple Watches and the Pixel Watch. Dealing with notifications is also a bit of a pain. We love that we can see them full screen, but clearing a notification requires a few taps while it should be much quicker. I can see how Garmin carries this interface from way back in the day of memory in Pixel, MIP, displays with no touchscreen support and button-only navigation, but we are not in those days anymore and the interface needs to adjust quickly. Sports tracking. What the Venu 3 lacks in interface chops, it more than compensates for with excellent sports tracking options. The new Elevate Gen 5 optical heart rate sensor here is the same as the one used in the flagship Phoenix and Epix Pro series, and it provides very accurate data. The GPS accuracy has also improved, and while you don't have dual-band GPS support on this watch, we still found it to be extremely accurate in tracking your workouts. On a couple of runs, data above, we had great GPS accuracy. Sleep tracking and nap detection. You can also track your sleep with the Garmin Venu 3, and in fact you really should if you want to have an accurate body battery score, which is one of the big selling points of this watch. The idea is that body battery shows you a 1% minus 100% estimate of your supposed energy levels during the day based on how well you slept in the last few nights, your HRV status, as well as how hard and how often have you worked out. What's new here is that when you tap on the body battery widget you see how exactly particular activities affected your score. We guess this feature will arrive to older watches via a software update. As for sleep tracking, we found it did a very good job. The watch was able to accurately determine when you fell asleep and when you wake up, and gives you a breakdown of your sleep stages. We love that in the Garmin app you can also tap on each sleep stage and the watch will quickly explain why it is important and how the time you spent in that sleep stage compares to optimal times. You also have a sleep coach feature that uses all of that information to tell you when you need to catch up on sleep and how many hours you should aim for the next night. One night, I slept only 5 hours and 31 minutes, and the sleep coach told me the next night I need to bump up the usual 7 hour 50 minutes of sleep and instead get 8 hours and 30 minutes of night rest. As for nap detection, I was feeling under the weather and took long afternoon naps for 2 days straight, but the Venu 3 never registered any of them. Maybe this feature will come with a software update. We will be testing this more, but at least currently that feature does not seem to be working on our end. Heart rate, HRV, ECG and other health features. The one upgrade the Garmin Venu 3 has over other similar Garmin sports watches like the Forerunner 265, for example, is the new Garmin Elevate Gen 5 sensor. This new sensor is just physically larger, so more space is in contact with the wrist. It also comes with 4 metal receptors and an electrical isolation ring around them, and these will enable you to take an ECG reading after a software update that is coming soon. And yes, the watch will be able to spot signs of atrial fibrillation, AFib. You also now have 6x green LEDs for more data and more accurate heart rate measurements. This new sensor also comes with the capability to take skin temperature readings, another feature that will be enabled with a soon-to-come software update. Skin temperature is already available on other smartwatches, so Garmin is kind of playing catch-up here, but this is important because it helps better determine the duration of sleep stages, ovulation cycles for women, and the onset of illness. One feature you do not have included here are electrodermal activity, EDA, sensors, which work by measuring changes in the electric conductivity of the skin typically caused by the sweat glands, a good indicator of how stressed you are. That feature is not commonly found on many smartwatches, but some like the Google Pixel Watch 2 do have it. Garmin Venu 3 battery and charging. And while the Garmin Venu 3 falls short when it comes to the interface and watch faces, it absolutely makes up for that with battery life. Forget about overnight charging, and constantly worrying whether your watch will last until the next day or if it won't die midnight and not record your sleep. While using the always-on display function on the smaller Venu 3S and working out for an average of around an hour every day, we got around 5 days of use between charges. And you can expect a bit more out of the larger Venu 3 model. That is impressive, and if you turn off the always-on function, you can add a few days more to that. Forgot your Garmin charger on that weekend trip? No need to worry. Speaking of charging, this watch uses Garmin's proprietary cable pin connector. Some find this a bit less convenient than modern magnetic chargers used by Apple Watches and Galaxy Watches, but I actually don't mind this cable at all, and I like that you have a solid wired connection and you can be certain your watch is charging at a fast rate without overheating. A full charge takes just a bit more than an hour on both watches. Garmin Venu 3 models and prices. As we've already mentioned, you have two models. Garmin Venu 345mm, $450. Garmin Venu 3S, 41mm, $450. So the price is the same for both. Garmin watches do not offer cellular connectivity, and that is one downside you need to account for. Other smartwatches do offer a cellular option with eSIM, which allows you to place and get calls, as well as an internet connection even when your phone is not around. Not on the Garmin. You can, however, preload music on the Venu 3 and you can play music on your run via headphones without bringing your phone. Garmin Venu 3 voice calls, assistant and haptics. You have a speaker on the left side of the Garmin Venu 3, and yes, you can place and receive calls on the watch, but only when your phone is nearby. By default, a long press on the middle key of the Venu 3 is programmed to start your phone's voice assistant, Siri on an iPhone, Google Assistant on Androids, and while that works okay, keep in mind that there is a bit of delay when using that feature. For that reason, I actually used it far less than I would use a voice assistant on other smartwatches, but your mileage may vary. As for haptics, you can set the strength of the vibration, but the vibration motor itself is not quite as precise and sharp as you get on an Apple Watch, for instance. Still, it gets the job done. Garmin Venu 3 competitors. We've already talked about the biggest rivals, the Apple Watch, the Samsung Galaxy Watch, and the Google Pixel Watch. All of them have a better thought-out interface and richer, smartwatch, functionality, but none of them have the multi-day battery life of the Garmin. Garmin Venu 3 summary and final verdict. At the end of the day, the Garmin Venu 3S will likely stay on my wrist after this review is done, and I think that is the best testament to its capabilities. I just hate having to worry about charging a smartwatch every day, and I do like to use the sleep tracking feature, which requires an even more careful charging schedule with traditional smartwatches. Garmin has the workout stats, battery life, comfort, and now the screen quality, but it really needs to put the work in optimizing that outdated interface and watch faces, and if it does that, it has all the chances of beating Apple and Samsung at their own game. Pros. Comfortable, comes in two sizes. Long battery life, excellent GPS accuracy. Heart rate measurements are also very accurate. Gorgeous OLED screen. Cons. Interface feels very outdated. Plastic body might feel a bit cheap to some. A digital crown would have been nice. Poor selection of watch faces. Not possible to tap on complications. Thanks for watching this video. For more updates, touch with us. What you think about Garmin Venu 3?